All right, our next guest is a bona fide American original, a multi-platinum teen idol who has packed Madison Square Garden, a writer who has launched iconic TV shows. He's lived a life between music, mayhem, and a little magic. From Grammy stages to the Hardy Boys to his new tour, Road to Us. Ladies and gentlemen, let's hear it for Shaun Cassidy. What's up, Shaun?
Music, mayhem, and magic. I like that.
Yeah, good tagline. You can use that if you'd like.
It's very good. I'm stealing it now.
Perfect. You were literally born into the royal family of American entertainment. You had a, Tony-winning dad, a Oscar-winning mom, a brother on the Partridge Family. I'm wondering, for you as a kid, is that pressure or confidence for you?
It's just weirdly normal. I use the analogy, if you come into a family of plumbers, everybody's a plumber, there's a lot of pressure to go into plumbing, And I did. I went into plumbing, and I found that I was successful at plumbing, but I didn't love plumbing. I was able to transition, early on I had success as a singer and an actor like my parents and my brother David. But I found that my true calling was writing, and I wanted the life the life of a writer, more privacy, hopefully more healthy. So I stepped away for like 30, 40 years, and I've written and produced a bunch of television shows, most recently a show called New Amsterdam, medical show. But I found I missed the connection with people. So in 2020, after not doing a concert tour for 40 years, I went out again, not knowing if anybody would be there or I'd like it. But people showed up, and I loved it. And now I'm doing the biggest tour of my whole career. So it's a full circle.
Yeah, I know. I heard you say that you had to completely relearn the guitar for this tour, which kind of fascinates me because there is something mysterious about the way music and muscle memory and the way those tunes live on our brain. But how long did you take away from the instrument, and how rusty were you? Was it all still there? You just had to knock off the rust, or was it a lot of work?
Well, I could still play the guitar, but I'd forgotten how to play songs that I had written when I was 18, 19, 20 years old. I just hadn't played them in forever. I had maintained, we have a piano in our living room, and I've always played piano. I'm probably a better piano player than I am a guitar player anyway. And I played that, and I'd sung, I'd sang around, the piano at Christmas and stuff, but I hadn't had a career as a performer. I'd made a very specific transition behind the scenes, and, I'm grateful that I was able to do it. And I had a great run. I'm still writing. I just turned in a new pilot to NBC yesterday that I wrote while I was on the road. In hotel rooms and in the back of SUVs from city to city. But as I said, I missed the connection with an audience. I felt like Rip Van Winkle. I went in my office at 29. I stepped out at 59. It's like, what happened? Are there people there still? And I especially since the pandemic, I felt everybody got so isolated. If you can be a conduit to get people out of the house for anything, I think you need to do it.
We're talking with Shaun Cassidy. He's hitting cities all over the country on this Road to Us tour. If you want to experience these songs, these stories, grab your tickets today. A live show. It's a good one, and you can pick those up at ShaunCassidy.com. Take me back to you're in high school. You get signed by Warner Brothers. What advice would you give that kid? What was going through his head at 18 when you inked that deal? What advice would you give him now all these years later if you had the chance?
I'd say have more fun. I was an old soul, and honestly, I kind of had a producer's brain even then. I didn't know that, but I reflect on a lot of the choices I made. And, I also, as I say, I'd watched my father was a Tony Award winner. My mother was an Academy Award winner. My brother David was a very big pop star in the early 70s. So here I am in the late 70s starring on a television show and opening the Grammys and having a bunch of hit records. And it's crazy. But it kind of scared me, honestly, because it was like so much. And I don't think I enjoyed it quite as much as I could have. But, me now in my 60s, I can look back at that kid and go, you did okay. You made the right decision stepping away. I wouldn't be here talking to you if he hadn't done that.
All right, well, let me set the scene for the audience. You mentioned some of the things, some of the wild stories that I'm sure you're going to hear a lot of these on this new tour at ShaunCassidy.com to pick up tickets. But let me set the scene. It's 1978. You're nominated for Best New Artist, 20th Annual Grammy Awards. Shaun Cassidy, our guest here, he's a teenager. And oh, by the way, he's the opening act. And to me, this is not even the biggest deal of the night, Shaun. your date, Princess Leia, Carrie Fisher. It's 1970. It's 1978, baby. Star Wars is on the big screen, and you're opening up the Grammys. Tell me about the limo ride, the whole Hollywood moment. I gotta know how was it with Princess Leia?
It was a great night with Princess Leia. She was a friend. Carrie was a friend and neighbor. She was a few years older than me too, and we weren't like dating or anything. But she, had just opened in this little movie called Star Wars. I had the #1 record in the country. I'm on a big hit TV show. And both of us are looking at each other like, aren't you the same dork you were 2 months ago in high school? Yeah. So we thought, well, why don't we go to the Grammys together and cause some trouble? And on the limo ride there, we got a little frisky, surprisingly. Again, that was not our relationship. We were just pals, but whatever. Fun night. And we got there, and I opened the show. I was like, Beyonce that year. It was crazy. And afterwards, we ended up at a restaurant in Hollywood with Ringo and Alice Cooper and Bernie Taupin, who remains a great friend. And again, looking at each other, looking around, going, how did we get here? How did that happen? It's weird, surreal.
Was there any da-do-ran-ran? Was there any of that da-do-ran-ran? I'm still trying to figure out what that exactly means. Can you give me the history?
So am I, buddy. If you can figure it out, let me know, will you?
Okay, it was a #1 hit. I know Phil Spector, Jeff Barry, I think Ellie, what they call them? The Brill Building Trio were the ones that wrote that big hit record for you, Da-Do-Ron-Ron. I want to know more about Phil Spector and his touch on music. I know he's a kind of a crazy guy, but he had that crazy wall of sound that he would turn records into these cinematic orchestras. What was that magic that Phil Spector had in the studio? You worked with him.
Yeah, he was crazy, but he was a brilliant producer. He made some of my favorite records as a little boy. I mean, the records that he made in the 60s, what I'd listen to on the school bus on my way to second grade, everything from You Lost That Love and Feeling with the Righteous Brothers to River Deep Mountain High with Ike and Tina Turner, to Be My Baby, arguably one of the best pop records ever made by the Ronettes, and the original Da-Do-Ron-Ron with the Crystals. So I'd listen to these songs, and when I started making records in the 70s, disco was like the big thing, and I wasn't a huge disco fan, and I didn't feel like disco was something that I could do with any kind of authenticity, so I kind of did throwback. Let's mix records that sound like wall of sound records, which is what Springsteen was doing. Born to Run is a throwback to a Phil Spector record. Big orchestral, multi-layered drum tracks. And that's what we were out to kind of hit with Da-Do-Ron-Ron and That's Rock and Roll and Hey Deanie, which were both big hits written by Eric Carmen, who also came from a power pop band, the Raspberries. So, those power pop records were kind of what we were after. And yeah, Phil was nuts, though. Phil was in a commercial of mine. We did a 30-second pre-MTV spot for Da-Do-Ron-Ron, and I asked Phil to be in it. And the record company said, that's a terrible idea. I said, why? They said, because he's insane. I said, it'll be fun. And I ended up being held at gunpoint by Phil for like 8 hours in his house. He wouldn't come out to do the video with us. He wanted to play me every record in his jukebox, which were all Phil Spector records, of course. And I loved the records, but I didn't like being held at gunpoint to listen to them.
I heard he did something similar.
And he ended up killing someone.
Yeah,
he went to prison for killing a young woman. So it all was a very tragic story. And it's not a fun segue into the Da-Do-Ron-Ron, so I don't tell that story in the show. But yeah, that was my Phil Spector experience.
You can hear a lot of these stories on the Road to Us North American Tour. A lot of nostalgia. Get your tickets and tour dates right now at ShaunCassidy.com. Now, your mother, Shirley, if you ask me, is the matriarch of the Cassidy dynasty. And what a beautiful soul. And she makes TV history back in 1970 when you're just a kid. The very first working mother on television. Up until then, you had Leave It to Beaver, you had The Brady Bunch, Father Knows Best. All the moms were stay-at-home moms. But your mom, a working mom, did you realize what was really happening and how groundbreaking that was at that time? Or did nobody really realize what was happening in real time?
I didn't know that till just now. You just told me something I didn't know.
Wow, yes.
I didn't know she played the first working mom on TV. Well, she drove the bus, didn't she?
She sure did.
Yeah, my mom was a widow on that show, widow, mother of 5 kids. and singing family, kind of loosely based on the Cowsills, which were an actual singing family. And my half brother, David Cassidy, auditioned, and the producer didn't know that he was related to my mom, or had been, the son of my mother's husband. So I remember they called her and said, "Hey, this David Cassidy is your stepson. Would it be weird if he played your son on the show?" And she said, "No, I love David." So he ended up on it too, but I didn't do it. Danny Bonaducci got my part.
Oh, yeah. I heard a wild story from Danny Bonaducci one time where he's obviously the former co-star with your bro on The Partridge Family, but he says he was at your brother's dressing room as a 13-year-old boy, and some 22-year-old beautiful woman was trying to hunt down David, and he happened to be in the right place at the right time, I guess, for him, because he says it was the greatest 30 seconds of his life. And he gave 100%. He gave 100% credit. He gave 100% credit to the spillover of your brother. And from your vantage point, as his brother, what was that world really like during that time with David Cassidy? Did you experience any of that?
Well, sure, because all of the girls that were my age were in love with him. So I didn't get spillover. I got rejection. That was a weird time for me. I mean, here's the crazy full circle. I mean, David and I ended up working together in a show on Broadway called Blood Brothers for a year and a half. But that was when I was in my 30s and he was in his early 40s, much later. But when I'm 13 and he's starring on The Partridge Family with my mom, every girl I knew was in love with him. And I'm a zit-faced kid with braces. Like, I'm lucky to, get across the street. So I saw him at Madison Square Garden then. I sat in the audience with all those kids and thought this is surreal. And then 7 years later, I'm selling out Madison Square Garden. And it was a quick 7 years. And then all the kids there, are now adults who come to my show and they bring their own kids, and the whole thing. It's called The Road to Us for a reason. It's not the road to me. It's the road to us, our shared experience across a lifetime.
You also had another wild story I heard you tell, that you're in Germany and you're doing some kind of special event, and AC/DC, like Bon Scott, Angus Young, they're opening up for you. That's incredible. That's a hell of a story.
Well, none of us were known. I don't know that they opened for me, but they were on before me on this sort of Cavalcade of Stars show. And it's the first time I'd seen or heard of AC/DC. And there's this kid in short pants who's my age, maybe younger than me even, I don't know. And then I go on and I'm singing these little pop songs and they're out there doing what AC/DC does. It was kind of a crazy booking, but I think we were both on Warner Brothers, or we were on WIA, which was Warner Electro Atlantic, the overseas hybrid of all the labels. And that happened a lot. We got in Europe, you get packaged with other people. I was on a show with the Spinners. I was on a show with some of the Eagles, actually. It's just funny and weird.
You got all kinds of great stories. I mean, we're running out of time, but he went to high school with Jamie Lee Curtis. Heath Ledger, how about that story? He becomes one of the greatest actors of his generation. And from what I understand, you bought him his first plane ticket to America so he could audition for your show, Roar. Is that true?
Yeah, we found Heath in Australia, in Perth, Australia. He'd done a little television there, but he'd never been to America. And I was casting a show I'd written called Roar, which was like a Braveheart kind of show, and on Fox. And we flew Heath to America and we screen tested him, and everybody just fell in love with him. And we knew he was going to be a big deal. And the show didn't last long, but I spent a lot of time with Heath, and what a lovely man he was, and what a tragedy that he's not here.
Man,
so great. I've been really fortunate. I've worked with a lot of actors, like Sarah Paulson's first job was on my first show called American Gothic. I had Austin Butler on a show I created for David and Patrick, my brothers, called Ruby and the Rockets. Austin played Patrick's son. He went on to play Elvis, of course. So, I'm grateful.
We could talk all day, Shaun, but I know that you got a big tour to get ready for. We're talking with Shaun Cassidy. He's hitting cities all over the country. Road to Us tour. If you want to experience the songs, the stories, if you want to see it live, grab your tickets today at Shaun Cassidy. Thank you so much for sharing some stories with us, and go get that full experience. God bless you, and keep rocking, Shaun. Keep it up, brother.
Thanks, man. Thanks for having me.